Hello guys and welcome to the Resto Druid gameplay, and today I'm going to be testing the DPS build. We're going to be testing balance affinity. There's some very interesting correlations with balance affinity and Heart of the Wild that I found in terms of Sunfire and Moonfire. We'll see if that's going to work. This is going to be a relative, like I mentioned, this is going to be a look at Resto Druid DPS. We'll be testing balance affinity. Right now we're in balance affinity here. You can see our Heart of the Wild proc. We're casting our rats. Again, you have to remember that it's rat, not solar rat. And then we're casting our starfires. And again, the names have changed. There's also eclipses that were not really super obvious how they look. It wasn't really super obvious in terms of the tooltip. So let's cast Wild Goat because there is actually damage here. We need to be very careful about balancing DPS and healing, because quite frankly the main difference between balance affinity and feral affinity is just the cast time. The cast time for a lot of your balance affinity spells like Rat or for example like Starfire is 2.3 seconds. It's a long time to do it. So that's the main thing. So right now we're putting Sunfire, Moonfire, we're casting our Starfire, and you'll see right now after casting certain of these we'll get into an Eclipse. So right now in Solar Eclipse, Rat cast time is reduced and damage is increased, and also if I cast my Star Surge it's going to extend the duration of those Eclipses. So there is certain ways of optimizing it, which again, this is the first playthrough with the new balance changes with eclipses, so bear in mind with me if I'm not optimizing everything in the best possible way. But what I found to be very interesting at this point, it's Heart of the Wild. So Heart of the Wild, from my testing, if you read it, Heart of the Wild is the balance affinity. Damage of your balance ability is increased by 30% and Star Surge is instant. So right now if you go to Moonfire, again you can see my Heart of the Wild is activated because I have this legendary right now that I'm testing, that every time I shift forms every 1 minute for 10 seconds I get Heart of the Wild. It used to be 50. Okay, I need to do some healing. Again, balancing DPS and healing, that's the key right now. So it is kind of hard, even though I'm going this DPS build. I still need to make sure everyone's alive in terms of HP, especially with new dungeons. That's the big problem with new dungeons. So what I found, which is very interesting in my opinion, is that if I go Heart of the Wild, if I go balance affinity, my Sunfire and Moonfire are increased during Heart of the Wild. So if I pop Heart of the Wild right now in my Moonfire form or my Moonkin form, their damage is increased, and the same thing is not true for feral affinity. So it's really interesting. It feels that Blizzard is like, right now if I pop Heart of the Wild, my Moonfire and Sunfire are dealing more damage. They're dealing more damage just right now because of the heart. For the next 40 so seconds it's going to be dealing more damage. So that's very interesting. I don't know if it's a bug, if Blizzard is trying to push Moonfire and Sunfire towards balance affinity and Heart of the Wild combo type of deal, but it's definitely very, very interesting right now. So we're going to be casting instant Star Surges. We're gonna be casting Rats. Again, remember, Rat is kind of like a direct damage thing. Starfire has this AoE component. It has an AoE splash component, and if you go like right now, I have Rat Eclipse. I'm gonna extend it. I'm gonna cast a bit more rats. Okay, I need to do a bit of healing here, guys. I can't be just plebbing all the time. But again, my Heart of the Wild expired. But if I go into my Moonkin form for the next 10 seconds, you can see I have it. I have it back up, guys. Again, you have to remember that, again, I'm into the Eclipse for Starfire, and Starfire is going to increase the AoE damage. So that's the differences between the two Eclipses for Rat, I might get hit here, and Starfire in terms of what they deal. But it's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting on how Blizzard is approaching this. Again, like I mentioned, the Heart of the Wild interaction with Sunfire and Moonfire, I don't know if that's going to be true. The biggest difference right now, in my opinion, not looking at numbers can change. Again, you can cast Regrowth in your Moonkin form, by the way, so you don't actually have to shift it out. But the biggest difference between your Balance Affinity or Feral Affinity, I feel, is just how long it takes to apply your damaging abilities. I feel like at least in Feral Affinity you put your bleeds, you get a couple of swipes in there, and you're kinda good to go to some extent. While in Balance Affinity, I feel it's a little bit different because of how long it takes to cast a lot of your abilities, like Starfire being 2.3 seconds. Again, this is gonna come with haste. So again, I'm in my Moonkin form. I didn't proc my Legendary. Again, I have to stress this, that during Moonkin form, without Heart of the Wild, my Moonfire and Sunfire deals the same amount of damage. So keep that in mind. I need to be in Heart of the Wild to actually get increased into my dots. So again, this might change. There's a lot of changes happening every day. I should mention that I'm also running Venthyr, so I'm gonna use Ravenous Frenzy. So when I'm using Ravenous Frenzy, if I stop casting for 1.5 seconds, I'm gonna get stunned and I'm gonna lose my stacks. So right now, I need to literally be casting all the time. I need to be casting all the time, and I'm gaining this damage and healing buff as well. Very, very important to be casting. Again, I have 14 stacks right now, 15, 16. Okay, it's over now. So it's a 3-minute cooldown. For 20 seconds, Druid spells you cast increases your damage, healing, and haste by 2% stacking. So again, another change that I didn't really cover last time is Iron Barrack. Iron Barrack duration has been increased to 1.5 minutes from 1 minute. And but it has this component of Stone Barrack. If for the people who remember what Stone Barrack was back in the day, so that's baked into Iron Barrack right now. So reduce damage taken by 20%, increases healing from your healing overtime effects by 20% for 12 seconds. So I honestly didn't really talk about this on my previous video because, quite frankly, I didn't even notice it. Again, I'm doing these. If you're doing a higher dungeon, if you're doing a dungeon where the tank really needs the defensives, you will definitely notice. But right now, with these lower end content, it really isn't too noticeable. Tank defensives are... I feel like tanks can mitigate stuff quite well. Again, it depends on what tank you choose. So right now, this is going to be the boss. We're going to put Moonfire, Sunfire. We're going to go into Moonkin form. We're going to apply Heart of the Wild. We're going to do instant cast Star Surge's Rat. There's a debuff that I need to dispel. Regrowth, because I can do it. Moonfire, Sunfire. We're gonna use Star Surge again. Instant cast, remember, Rats. We're spamming Rats all the time, trying to do DPS. We have 23 seconds. We can stay here. Okay, we're gonna apply Moonfire, Sunfire on everybody. We're gonna heal people out of from here. I'm sure you can actually do this. This might not be the best way of doing it. We're gonna put Iron back. Again, we're kind of wasting our... I'm wasting my Heart of the Wild here, but what can you do? You need to heal. We're gonna use Trank. We're reaching everybody from here. We don't even need to go there again. I need to move out of this. Beware. And now we need to kill the blob. So right now, if I go to my Moonkin form, I'm gonna have extra DPS because Heart of the Wild. So I can nuke it down a bit. Again, I need to heal a bit. Apply some hots. Warlock is taking a lot of damage. I had to use Swiftmend. Remember, Swiftmend needs to have a hot applied on the person before I can apply Swiftmend. So that's very important. Is it going to be viable? I don't know. Numbers will tell. The only interesting part about all of this Balance Affinity interaction is that Balance Affinity and Heart of the Wild seem to buff your Sunfire and Moonfire damage. So if you use Heart of the Wild, the 5-minute ability for the next, what is it, 45 seconds, your Sunfire and Moonfire are going to deal more damage. If you get a proc from your Legendary that for the next 10 seconds every 1 minute, you're going to deal more damage in Balance Affinity, with Balance Affinity. And the same thing is not true for Feral Affinity. So I don't know if that's a bug or not a bug. I don't know if Blizzard is directly trying to make Balance Affinity a more competitive talent choice. Like, is Blizzard trying to tell you, like, hey, if you feel you have enough time to cast these spells, if you really hate melee or whatever, Balance Affinity could be a... Like, for example, let's go right now. We're gonna pop our Moonkin Form for 10 seconds, Starfire or Star Surge, and then we're gonna go into Starfire for AoE. Again, it's very difficult to do it. You see our Eclipse procced. You see our Rat Eclipse proccing there as well, so my Rat cast time is reduced and damage increased. I can extend that by Star Surge, by the way, but again, I couldn't really do it because I had to heal. So it really depends. Again, do I feel this is more interesting or more fun than Feral Affinity? I'm really a big fan of Feral Affinity, if I'm being very, very honest. I've always been a very big fan of Feral Affinity. I just feel the whole concept of applying bleeds on top of dots, on top of hots, like a fast playstyle. If you need fast AoE with swipes, you have it. I don't think Balance Affinity provides the same thing, but I know there's a lot of people out there. Who really just dislike going into melee at all. They don't want to go into melee, especially for a fact that Resto Druid, no matter what, is counted as a range. It's not like a monk, Mistweaver monk, or a Holy Paladin, where they're counted as a melee character, and a lot of the ranged abilities are not gonna go onto them. Resto Druid is not counted in that way. So if you're Resto Druid and for whatever reason, again, you play Feral Affinity and you go into melee, there's a high chance you're gonna get ranged abilities happening to you. So it can be a little bit awkward, but generally speaking, from my opinion, I really enjoy Feral Affinity. I'm really a big fan of it. I can't knock it. It's one of my favorite things to play. So far, how do I feel about Balance Affinity? It would be very interesting if it's going to be viable. Very, very interesting if it's going to be viable. And you get Typhoon, I forgot to mention. You also get Typhoon because with Balance Affinity you get Typhoon, and with Feral Affinity you get Maim. On top of other legendaries that I wanted to talk about, there's quite a few. Honestly, I feel there has been quite a few legendaries for Resto Druids. I think out of legendaries, Resto Druid is probably one of the winners in terms of healers. Like, generally speaking, if you really look at some of the legendaries, there's choices for Mythic Plus. There are choices for Mythic Plus healing, like the Double Life Bloom. There's choices for Mythic Plus damage, like this legendary, for example. There are choices for raids, like the Rejuvenation legendary. Again, we're not sure if the Rejuvenation legendary, that, you know, Rejuvenation jumps from target, has a chance to jump from target, if it's going to be really strong in raids. Like, historically speaking, it was really strong in Legion, but in Legion, Rejuvenation was far longer in duration because of things like the Legendary Shoulders, which, again, Legendary Shoulders did not make it into the beta. So we're gonna go into our Moonkin form, we're gonna apply our dots, our Star Surge, and we're dealing a bit of damage. Again, I didn't really show the Venthyr ability, the Doors of Shadows, the teleported a lot of people have been talking about. So like I mentioned, I'm using Venthyr for it, and I'm using the Ravenous Frenzy that I'm gonna activate because there's going to be a certain amount of... Okay, we're gonna need to heal right now because there's going to be... We're gonna pop our Ravenous Frenzy as well. So we need to do a lot of stuff right now. Again, Ravenous Frenzy also affects your... Ravenous Frenzy also affects your damage. So if I go with my Heart of the Wild right now, I get my Heart of the Wild in my Moonkin form because of my Legendary. Again, this is dangerous because there's AoE damage happening. But we killed the boss. This is an interesting boss, and I feel like, again, the tank got hit at the very end. But this is a very interesting boss. And how do I feel about Moonfire or Balance Affinity? Sunfire, Moonfire, top of my damage list, Starfire, Star Surge, Rat. I mean, it's definitely based on how much you can DPS. I feel like Feral Affinity is the quick bleeds and things like that and go back and DPS type of deal or heal, and Moonkin form is a lot more about that. I need a lot of time. I need to make a conscious decision to DPS or heal. Again, the fact that Moonkin form with Heart of the Wild or Balance Affinity with Heart of the Wild increases your Sunfire and Moonfire damage is interesting, but is that going to be enough to make Balance Affinity, I don't know, a clear option or maybe a viable option? We'll have to see.